If we run out of room in this room this evening, there is overflow in our tower room out of the lobby. There's screens and able to hear everything that's going on here in the council chambers too. We appreciate the people in attendance this evening. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Gilbert Council meeting for June 20th, 2023. I will call this meeting to order and move to our invocation that will be offered by Elder Trey Richardson of Center Church. And if you'd come to that podium, please. Thank you for being here this evening. We appreciate you.
Glad to be here. Thank you. If I could ask us to please pray. Lord, we come to you in prayer, and first we want to thank you for those that are serving us here in Gilbert. Father, thank you for Mayor Peterson and the town council, how they lead us, Lord, in leading our community. Father, thank you for the first responders in Gilbert that are available to us in crisis, Gilbert Police and Fire, Lord, that keep us safe, the Gilbert support staff that effectively serves from the background. And finally, Lord, thank you for the veterans and the military personnel that have served us by serving our country. So for this town council meeting, Lord, we just pray that you would give all of the council, wisdom. And borrowing from what the Apostle Paul prayed for the Colossians in the first chapter, he prayed wisdom for them. Lord, he said, I pray that you'd be filled with the knowledge of his will and all spiritual wisdom and understanding. So, Lord, that's our prayer for these fine folks that serve us. And, Lord, we pray for unity, and we pray against division in our community. Lord, there's so many different ways to be divided in today's culture. May we discover how to live, how to work, how to serve, how to play even well together. May we embrace the principles found in your word that says we're to love our neighbors as ourselves. Finally, Lord, we close our prayer. I close this prayer by just expressing thanksgiving for the greatest gift that we've ever received, and that's your Son. Lord, thank you for giving us Jesus Christ and your glorious gospel through him, and the message that for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whosoever believes in him shall not perish but have life everlasting. Lord, we thank you and we ask your blessing on the remainder of the meeting. Lord, in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Elder Richardson. That was lovely. We appreciate your time this evening. Thank you for joining us. Just a reminder for everyone to turn off and silence cell phones and devices. I will look to my left and to my right for that. Next, we will have our Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Bongiovanni, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Next, if I could have Town Clerk Herrera please take the roll.
Mayor Bridget Peterson,
Present.
Vice Mayor Kathy Tilkey,
Here.
Councilmember Scott Anderson,
Here.
Councilmember Chuck Bongiovanni,
Here.
Councilmember Bobby Buckley,
Here.
Councilmember Jan Kaprowski,
Here.
and Councilmember Jim Torgerson. A quorum is present.
Thank you, Chiavelli. Appreciate that. Councilmember Kaprowski is joining us virtually this evening for this evening's meeting. We have one proclamation on our agenda this evening. It is a proclamation declaring July 2023 as Parks and Recreation Month, and Councilmember Bongiovanni will present this to the Parks and Recs Department, Kylie Sorensen and team. If you would please come down and join Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Why, thank you. I'm good. I can see. Hey, team. Hi. I'm excited about this one. Okay, today, July is Parks and Recreation Month, whereas Parks and Recreation is an integral part of communities throughout the country, including the town of Gilbert. And whereas Parks and Recreation promotes health and wellness, improving the physical and mental health of people in the community. And whereas Parks and Recreation promotes time spent in nature, which positively impacts mental health by increasing cognitive performances and well-being. And whereas Parks and Recreation encourages physical activities by providing space for popular sports, multi-use paths, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas Parks and Recreation programming and educational activities such as youth programming, special events, and environmental education are crucial in childhood development. And whereas Parks and Recreation is fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas the town of Gilbert recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now, therefore, I, Chuck Bongiovanni, for Bridget Peterson, Mayor of Town of Gilbert, Arizona, do proclaim July 2023 as Parks and Recreation Month in Gilbert, Arizona, and I urge all citizens to celebrate by visiting your local parks and recreation locations. Super job, guys. Yeah, I'll say it. No, it's fine. Can I say whereas one more time? I know. Sure. Okay. One more clause. Whereas we're going to go this way. Okay. Hey, you need to put an X here. Whereas where the X is. Yep. Awesome. Here you go, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good job.
Thank you, Councilmember Bongiovanni. Congratulations to our Parks and Recs team on that proclamation. Vice Mayor, are you all settled over there? I know it's been a lot to get ready. Are you good? Okay. We will move into communications from citizens. The Vice Mayor will handle that portion of the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome, everyone. The Gilbert Town Council values citizens' comments and input. Anyone wishing to speak before the council must fill out a request to speak card for each item they wish to speak on and submit it to the town clerk or place it in the bin provided prior to the start of the meeting. The communications from citizens portion of the agenda provides citizens an opportunity to identify for the town council matters of interest or concern related to town government that are not on the printed agenda. Under the provisions of the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the town council is prohibited from responding to issues that have not been properly noticed. Therefore, the town council may only listen to citizens who wish to address them on non-agenda items. At the conclusion of the open call to public, response is limited to individual members of the council responding to criticism made by those who have addressed the public body, asking staff to review a matter, or asking that a matter be put on a future agenda. The town asks that when your name is called, you come forward to the podium, state your name and place of residence, and then begin speaking. All speakers are expected to observe common standards of decorum and courtesy. Personal attacks, political speeches, and threats of political action are inappropriate in this forum and will be grounds for ending a speaker's time at the podium. Mayor, we have several speakers this evening, and I'd just like to clarify, because the topic is HD South, and we do have an agenda item on consent agenda that does not take public comment. If you want to speak and come forward, it cannot be on the published agenda item. So I'm happy to have you speak. You just can't speak on the agenda. For those that are here, I have not received a request to pull that item from the council agenda, which means it'll be voted on with the rest of the agenda items. So I just wanted to give you that information ahead of time. You're always welcome to speak. In this portion, you can't speak on an agenda item. So I'm going to call your name. If you want to speak, please come forward. It's 3 minutes. The first one up will be Gail Dish. We'll need you to turn on the microphone. You will see the timer there, which will allow you to know how far you are into that. So, Gail, come on down to this middle podium right here. And the little red light should come on. You push the little button down there. The big button, I think. Yeah, there you go.
Is that it? Good evening, Mayor Peterson, Vice Mayor Telge, and our town council. My name is Gail Dish, and I'm here just on behalf of HD South. I've been a resident of Gilbert for 38 years. Since moving here in 1985, I have been involved in arts, culture, and preservation of history in our community. I was the organizer of Gilbert's inaugural Global Village Festival almost 20 years ago now, and I still continue to serve with Global Village on the steering committee and raising funds so that the costs are minimized for Global. Last year, I received the Geneva Clay Community Award for Volunteerism, and I have been a longtime member of HD South's Historical Society Board. What I'm here to say is that HD South is a wonderful gem in our community, quite a treasure. And I think that we all need to support it. Very wonderfully, our community supported it in the last couple of years here with our new vision. So what I'd like to say about HD South, it's been the heart of Gilbert ever since we picked Gilbert as our home. Please join in continuing to enhance our town and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail, and thank you for your service to our community. Next up, we have Jim McPherson, and following Jim will be Wally Delecki.
Hello, Mayor and members of Council. My name is Jim McPherson, Board President of the Arizona Preservation Foundation, our state's historic preservation advocacy organization. I live in Phoenix. I'm the only non-Gilbert resident on the HD South Capital Campaign, but since 2011, I've been involved in efforts to preserve and promote your town's only building listed on the National Register of Historic Places, the 1913 Gilbert Elementary School, now Gilbert Historical Museum. It's a building with such a rich history that tells the story of your community with an equally rich history. But more importantly, I've come to meet and work with incredibly dedicated and caring group of citizens who have devoted their time, talent, and treasure year after year after year to the place you all call home. They care so much not only about Gilbert's past, but its future. And that's what building communities for all ages is about. HD South provides a positive economic impact. HD South helps to boost tourism. HD South enhances the arts and cultural experiences, not only for Gilbert, but the entire East Valley. And HD South offers unique and innovative educational opportunities for the young, old, and in between, again, here in Gilbert and the greater East Valley. And HD South and its devoted board and staff continue to stand ready to enhance the Heritage District and showcase the unique town of Gilbert as the vibrant, forward-looking, and caring community you know it is and continue to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Very nice to see you again. Wally Delecki is up, and following Wally will be Maria Hesse.
Good evening, Mayor Peterson, Vice Mayor Tilke, Town Council, staff, community. I'm Wally Delecki. I've lived here 45 years, 1349 East Catamaran Drive, Gilbert. For 23 years, I worked on the campus and complex of HD South, and I see it as the anchor to the Heritage District. I see it the anchor to the public school system. And moreover, I think I want you to understand that Arizona law requires the citizens of Gilbert have an election in order for us to sell the land and the building to HD South. It was a unanimous election. Not one negative vote was cast. So thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Wally. It's great to see you here in the council chambers. Maria is next, Maria Hesse, and then followed by Alan Fitzgerald.
Mayor Peterson, Vice Mayor Tilke, members of the Town Council, town staff, and guests. My name is Maria Hesse, and I've been a resident of Gilbert for more than 30 years. Tonight, I'm advocating for HD South, the home of the Gilbert Historical Society, created to preserve the town's history. HD South has expanded its programs and services to include much more than history. In the true spirit of Gilbert, we are intentionally engaging people of all ages in a broad range of civic, educational, cultural, and recreational activities. As the former president of Chandler Gilbert Community College and vice provost at Arizona State University, and now as a professor of practice in higher education at the university, I'm a believer that we must be mindful to preserve and study our history in order to better understand our present and to plan for a bright future. And I love the expanded vision for HD South, providing intergenerational programming that further strengthens our community by creating a sense of belonging and connectivity. Those of us who have been serving on the Capital Campaign Cabinet have raised $1.6 million to fund the renovations and the expansions that are needed at HD South. This should be an indication of the support of our fellow community members for this organization and the directions in which we are headed. We would sincerely appreciate your continued support for the important work that HD South is doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. Alan Fitzgerald is next, and following Alan is Sven Severson.
Good evening, Mayor Peterson and all the town council members. New faces for me, as I've stood here a few times, and total agreement with everything that was going on. And tonight, I expect that we're all in the same space. HD South is a wonderful environment for something that I hold to be critically important for any community, and a place where we can deliver excellence in our community, and that's public art. I have been part of the Gallery 4 inside of the Historical Museum for about 7 years. The first exhibition that we put on there was early in 2017. We put on 9 exhibitions in that space, as well as other organizations in Gilbert, such as the Gilbert Visual Art League. And I know that public art is a very important tenet for the considerations that you all are making for the future of HD South. I want to thank Councilmember Buckley for attending the opening on the 6th of June, and to ask you all to please join us down there. The exhibition that's currently up is there through July 28th, and it is a photographic retrospective of the Heritage District. It rings completely true with the history and the History Museum, in the sense that you can see Liberty Market while they were still selling T-bone steaks. You can see the restaurants that pre-existed Joyride and Postino, and the beginnings of so much else. So as the Gilbert Historical Museum, the Historical Society, and HD South, this tenet for public art is alive and can grow and become more vibrant in our community. And I do want to thank you all for standing up and seeing this vision as how critical that can be. And I do hope to see you in the gallery and at HD South in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Sven, you're up next. And following will be Terry Natty.
Hello, everyone. My name is Swen Severson. I'm a 21-year-old resident of Gilbert, currently studying aerospace engineering at the University of Southern California. I am here on behalf of my mom, Adelaida Severson, who is the chair of the HD South Capital Campaign Cabinet. She was unable to make this meeting tonight as she is out of the country, so she asked her favorite son to say a couple of words on her behalf. So here's that. Dear Mayor Peterson and members of the council, Adelaida Severson here, chair of the HD South Capital Campaign, but my day job is CEO and founder of Bush Techs Incorporated, an international satellite communications company right here in Gilbert, Arizona, and a 22-year resident of this wonderful town. I wanted to first thank you all for your support of HD South Gilbert Historical Museum. My hope tonight is that you will continue to support the Gilbert Historical Society and HD South. We are excited to partner our offerings with the town so we can continue in our efforts to serve our community while preserving our history. I know you all are dealing with major issues that face our town, but your support means volumes, and for that, my sincere gratitude to all of you. Genuinely, Adelaida Severson. Finally, it's me, Swen, speaking this time. I wanted to personally ask for your support. As someone who's lived here all my life, I love seeing how far Gilbert has advanced. I remember always running into that construction on Lindsay as I was already late for high school, wishing that it wasn't there. After coming home from college and seeing that new on-ramp, it makes me super jealous of current campus students who don't have to deal with that construction, but it also makes me appreciate how much this town has progressed. And for me, HD South is very similar to that construction. I've been a part of helping my mom with all of the grunt work, whether that be helping set up events, film videos, or read her speech to the Gilbert Town Council. But I know I'll look back on this process and be glad that it not only added to the town's growth, but also ensured we don't lose sight of our history and the town that I grew up in. Thank you all for your time and all that you do, and I don't look at speaking to you guys as grunt work, by the way. But thank you and have a good night.
Thank you so much. Terry Natty is next and will be our final speaker.
Good evening. My name is Terry Natty. I live in a county island within the Gilbert planning area. I love to hear the community come out and speak of positive things. I love to have a change of pace. I'm sure y'all are tired of listening to me, but I'm back up here again with something not quite so positive. I know that I gave you all a copy of this many, many months ago. I don't know if you actually read it, so I'm going to assume that you didn't. I'm going to talk about lies and manipulation and what your staff is doing, and I want the public to know about it too. When I was told from the beginning by Fabiano what is truly driving the need for 65 feet of Ocotillo width for one half of the road, that was utilities under the ground. Obviously, that's not true, or there would be no diagrams that you guys were shown for 60 feet, 55 feet, or 50 feet easements. Slide 5, which looks like this, that you saw. Their numbers on residents directly affected are definitely manipulated. This slide says 19. That is absolutely incorrect. There are 19 affected homes marked in purple on the north side of Ocotillo alone, plus 3 vacant lots marked in green on the south side, and there are 13 affected homes and 2 vacant lots. That is 32 homes on a total of 37 parcels in your staff's own image. When Fabiani originally told me that RWCD required 20-foot and SRP required 12-foot on 6/8 of '22, I thought it was excessive. In a phone conversation I had a few days later with Brad Strader of RWCD, one of my neighbors had with Henry Solis of SRP, we discovered that those measurements were indeed inflated. That RWCD typically requires 14 feet and SRP typically requires 8 feet. This is the beginning of me uncovering Fabiano's lies. During my small group meeting, Fabiano and Reinheimer told us that SRP dictates whether lines are overhead or buried. And when I asked if the lines could remain above ground, Reinheimer even went so far as to say that the relocated overhead lines on Val Vista will be relocated again when the subdivision goes in per SRP requirements. I said that's illogical. She agreed and said it wasn't an option. More lies. In a conversation with Henry Solis, myself, in November of '22, he told me that SRP does not make the call on whether the line is above ground or below ground. SRP does what is requested as long as the request is reasonable, safe, and within their parameters. Slide 26, number 9, town deviations to town standards at 55 feet. They would said that no, there would be no room for existing relocations. This is just 3 of 8 minimum lies and or manipulations on the part of town staff to you, to me, to the rest of my neighbors, and to the public. And it's not okay. It's not okay.
Thank you, Terry. Mayor, with that is the end of the communications from citizens.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Now we'll move into our consent calendar, so I'll turn it back over to you. We had some changes to that this evening.
We did. So we've had some addendum items add to the consent agenda. First, I would like to note that item number 7 will be, has been resubmitted as a change order instead of an agreement, and that is item 25A. We will be removing item 31, which will come forward to a future agenda. Also, we will be bringing forward, item number 43 as part of the consent agenda as a motion to appoint the Veterans Advisory Board. Aaron Hennigan, Peyton Parker, Pamela Ryan-Smith, and Dave Rosenfeld, with terms beginning June 16, 23 through ending June 15, 2026. And with that, this is going to be a long list, so please be patient, but there's been some additions, and I want to make sure we get all of them. And if I miss anything, please call me out on it. I make a motion to approve consent items number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 10A, 10B, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 25A, 26, 27, 28, 29, 29A, 30, 32, 32A, 33, 33A, 34, 35, and 43 as noted.
I have a motion to approve. Can I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Tilke, a second by Councilmember Torgerson. Please vote.
Mayor Peterson, I do have Councilmember Kaprowski's vote to consent items. Consent items 10A, 10B, 25A, 29A, 32A, 33A, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 through 30, 32, 35, and 43. So just reaffirming the vote.
And that would be a 7-0 vote,
Correct.
unanimously passing with Councilmember Kaprowski voting via the clerk's office this evening. Thank you, Chevelle, for that. Thank you, Councilmember Kaprowski. Thank you, Vice Mayor. It was asked if the council would consider going down to the floor and taking a picture with the members from HD South that are here this evening, similar to what we did with RWCD a couple of meetings ago. Would anybody be willing to come down and have a photo taken? Great. Join me down on the floor, please. Thank you for indulging us for a moment, everyone. We will now move into our public hearing portion of our agenda. Items will be heard at one public hearing, at which time anyone wishing to comment on a public hearing item may do so. Comments will be heard from those in support of or in opposition to an item. We have several items on our public hearing agenda this evening. We have 2 liquor licenses, and then number 38 and 39, which I know will require extra time. Number 40, 40A, 41, and 42. Does anyone require additional presentation or comments for the 2 liquor licenses or 40, 40A, 41, or 42? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing on items 36, 37, 40, 40A, 41, and 42, and close the public hearing and see if I can get a motion to approve those.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Anderson, seconded by Councilmember Torgerson. Please vote.
We have a yes vote from Councilmember Kaprowski as well.
Thank you. That motion passes with a 7-0 vote, including Councilmember Kaprowski's. Now we'll go back to items 38 and 39. I'm going to open the public hearing on both of these items together. I understand that staff has a joint presentation and the applicant has a joint presentation. We'll open items 38, General Plan GP 22-05, Zoning Z 22-05, also GP 23-12, and Zoning Z 23-04, and ask our staff member Veronica to please come to the podium for her presentation. Let me also comment that we have some online public comments received. We had, for number 38, we had a total of 47 in support of and 2 in opposition of. And for number 39, we had 42 in support of and 2 in opposition of. Thanks, Veronica.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Veronica Gonzalez from Planning, here to present for you the cases GP 2205 and Z 2205 for the ranch, and GP 2312 and Z 2304 for residences at the ranch. The site is approximately 311 acres, located between Elliott Road and Warner Road on the west side of Power Road. The project has been divided into 2 parts. The first part being the 271 acres, which includes the major general plan amendment, which is to change the land use classification from industrial, general office, and general commercial to industrial and general commercial, as well as rezoning to change the zoning districts from light industrial, business park, and general commercial to light industrial, general commercial, and mixed-use large, all with the PAD overlay zone. The second part is a minor general plan amendment and rezoning request on approximately 39 acres. The minor general plan amendment is to change the land use classification from industrial, general office, and general commercial to residential 14 to 25 dwelling units per acre and general commercial. The rezoning request is to change the zoning from light industrial, business park, and general commercial to multifamily medium, mixed use small, mixed use large, and general commercial, all with a PAD overlay. Both the major and minor general plan amendments propose to change the existing mix of land uses on the property. On the left-hand side of the screen here is the proposed land use mix for the major general plan amendment, so the 271 acres. The proposed land use classifications are 221.3 acres of industrial and 50.3 acres of general commercial. On the right-hand side is the proposed land use for the 39 acres that make up the minor general plan amendment. The requested land uses within the 39 acres includes 35.7 acres of residential, 14 to 25 dwelling units per acre, and 3.8 acres of general commercial. The purpose of this 39-acre area of the development was to provide that additional buffer between the existing residences to the west and the future proposed industrial uses on the property. The property is identified in the general plan as being located within the Power Road Growth Corridor. As part of this growth corridor, the area is identified as a prime location for employment uses because of its proximity to the Santan Freeway and the Phoenix Mesa Gateway Airport. In addition to that, our general plan encourages mixed-use developments within growth areas where higher density residential components of a mixed-use project is designed as an integral part of the development and creates a distinctive living environment. And as we all know, the property is also located within the Morrison Ranch character area. The land use policy within the Morrison Ranch character area does encourage a creation of neighborhoods with a variety of uses and densities as long as they integrate with the overall rural character of the area. To accompany the major general plan and minor general plan amendments, the applicant is also requesting to rezone the property. Again, on the left side, we see here the 271-acre portion of the site, where within this area, the proposed rezoning is to approximately 221.3 acres of light industrial, 46.4 acres of general commercial, and 3.9 acres of mixed-use large. Down in the southwest portion of the site is approximately 18.2 acres, and this is noted as restricted light industrial on the plan. What this means is that the buildings within this 18.2 acre area will be limited in height to 35 feet, and any roll-up or bay doors on the buildings will be oriented on the east side of the buildings, away from that west side. On the right side is the proposed layout for the rezoning request for the 39 acres. Within this area, the applicant proposes to rezone approximately 14.9 acres to multifamily medium, 9 acres to mixed-use small, 11.7 acres to mixed-use large, and 3.8 acres to general commercial. And again, the intent of this zoning pattern is to create that buffer that is desired by the residents from the future employment industrial uses. So the general plan and zoning classifications on this property have been modified since the original request in 2022. And you'll see that broken down on this within these tables here. The proposal before the council tonight still includes industrial and commercial components that were seen in the original request, but multifamily and mixed-use components have now been added to the land use and zoning mix along the west side of the property. And these new land use and zoning designations will act as a buffer between the more intense uses of the employment industrial and the existing residences. Both rezoning requests do include a planned area development or PAD overlay. Within the 271 acres, the purpose of the PAD is to request accessory structures within the light industrial portions to exceed the maximum height of 55 feet, or in this case, accessory structures allowed to go up to 65 feet. The standard height within the light industrial zoning district is 55, and this height increase would only be applicable to accessory structures. The PAD request for the 39-acre area is the result of the applicant and neighbors working together to create a compatible development that softens the transition between the different land uses and meets the interests of both parties. The PAD overlay within the 39 acres includes items such as minimum design standards, height limitations, density caps, minimum amount of non-residential uses on the ground floor of the mixed-use components of the project. And here we have the proposed development plan for the site. Just to kind of orient you a little bit here, north is to the right, so Elliott Road to the right, Warner to the left, and then Power Road along the bottom of the screen here. The bright green area along the west side is the open space landscape buffer between the residences and the remaining portion of the site. The amenities within this area will include landscaping, a pedestrian trail, a double row of trees, bench seating, and the signature white split rail Morrison Ranch fence. The area in yellow indicates where the multifamily medium would be located. The area in light purple is where the mixed-use small would be located, and that pinky beige color is where the mixed-use large would be located. These areas are where the multifamily units will be located within the project, where the maximum total number of units will be capped at 750 units. The red areas designate the locations for the commercial and retail uses, and the aqua and blue areas signify the employment industrial areas. I'd like to point out that this development plan also provides some internal circulation on the site. The black dashed line indicates the residential and commercial retail traffic on the site, which would mostly be filtering up to Elliott Road, a little out to Power, and down south to Warner Road. The yellow dashed line indicates the truck traffic for the employment uses, and those will circulate out to Power Road and Warner Roads. Another item I'd like to note is that if the council chooses to vote to approve this case, any changes to this development plan would have to be approved by the Planning Commission and the Town Council through the public hearing process. So what we've got here is the conceptual site plan to demonstrate how the two parts kind of fit together. This site plan is for illustrative purposes only. The site planning, the landscape plan, the building design, those will come along in the future as separate design review cases. The project will be developed in phases. Phase 1 includes the installation of the landscaping within the open space area along the west boundary of the site. Once that landscaping has been, once the installation of that landscaping has been completed, then the developer may begin with vertical construction on the area called out as Phase 1A. Phase 1A includes the multifamily, mixed use, and the northern general commercial portions of the development. Within Phase 1, the developer intends to build the multifamily and mixed-use areas from west to east. But it is important to note that the site planning for these areas will be done in its entirety. Once vertical construction has started on Phase 1A, the developer may then begin vertical construction on Phase 1B, which is the southern portion of the industrial uses. Phase 1C is the proposed general commercial located within the southeast corner of the property. And this phase may be built concurrently with any of the other phases within this plan. Phases 2 and 3 entail the remainder of the employment industrial areas, and these may not begin construction with the exception of roadways and utilities until construction of 13 acres and 20 acres respectively within the Phase 1A area is underway. This phasing plan is the result of the applicant and developer working together and has been agreed upon by both parties. And again, should the council vote to approve this project, construction in compliance with this phasing plan will be required, and any changes to this phasing plan would have to be approved through the public hearing process. Four neighborhood meetings were held regarding this project. 2 were virtual and 2 were in person. Some of the commonalities in terms of questions, comments, and concerns that we received from the residents in attendance were about noise, truck traffic, concerns with multifamily use, questions about the landscape buffer, and building height. In addition to these neighborhood meetings, though, the applicant met with members of the Morrison Ranch neighborhood several times to come to a mutually agreeable development plan and phasing plan. I'd also like to point out that I received a write-up from a Morrison Ranch resident this afternoon, and I sent in a copy to you, so hopefully you've had a chance to read that, indicating that he is in acceptance of the proposed plan. The goals and policies of the general plan are meant to work together to provide a balance and compromise for development proposals. This project will provide a mix of jobs, commercial, retail, and residential that supports the goal of a balanced land use framework that provides transitions between distinct land uses, promotes a diversity of housing types, and contributes to an increase in the town's economic base. And so on that note, I would like to turn it over to Jennifer Graves from Economic Development to speak on the economic development impact of this project.
Thank you, Veronica, Mayor, members of council. Delighted to be here. Jennifer Graves, Deputy Director for the Office of Economic Development. Economic Development was asked to provide some information on how employment-oriented land use and development aligns with the goals and priorities of the general plan. Efforts around job growth are focused on base industry jobs, like the examples you see on the slide in front of you, that provide family-supporting wages. This type of job growth is critical to building a prosperous community and a strong economy. Gilbert has just over 133,000 resident workers and about 92,000 jobs, resulting in approximately 41,000 net commuters or resident workers needing to leave the community every day for work. Within just the STEM and STEM-related occupations, that delta exceeds 14,000 jobs. Economic development focuses on closing that gap by attracting and growing more job opportunities in Gilbert that can help support our residents and increase their quality of life. Reserving and providing areas for job growth is critical to create jobs and industries that provide family-supporting wages and serve the needs of Gilbert as a whole. At present, Gilbert's development inventory and land use do not position the community to respond to opportunities to grow these types of jobs. With only 6% of Gilbert's total land use designated for employment, only about a third of that still available for development, and existing inventory of employment industrial space sitting at less than 3%. Employment-oriented land is concentrated in Gilbert's designated employment areas, and the map on the left of the slide highlights the vacant employment-oriented land in red. Reserving and providing sites for employment and expanding and maintaining areas for manufacturing and distribution are not only key policies of the general plan, but are principles that also support the goal of economic diversification through a healthy mix of residential, commercial, and employment land uses. This is to help create a community that is financially sustainable and help keep taxes lower for Gilbert residents. Fiscal benefits from employment and commercial-oriented developments include things like impact fees, construction sales tax, lease tax, as well as utility taxes, and also potentially benefits from Gilbert residents who work in the community because more of their daytime spending will be here, increasing the town's tax base. The development themselves and their business operations that occupy these developments provide significant impacts to the community. Direct impacts come from business operations and their employees. Indirect economic impacts come from spending by the businesses supplying services and products to those tenants. And induced economic impacts come from direct and indirect employee spending in the community. As an example of the importance of diversification and how high-value employment and commercial development helps to keep taxes lower for Gilbert families, consider that one 150,000 square foot employment building generates the same amount of secondary property tax for Gilbert as about 125 single-family homes. Working in harmony with our residential communities, these employment and commercial assets can help create the diversification necessary for fiscal sustainability. These types of developments also directly build out critical infrastructure projects in and around their sites, benefiting neighboring properties, residences, and commuters. And now I'll turn things over back to Veronica. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jen.
Mayor and Council, with that, staff does recommend that adoption of the resolution approving General Plan GP 2205 for the ranch, and to make the findings of fact and adopt the attached ordinance approving zoning case Z2205, as well as adopting the resolution for General Plan GP 2312 residences at the ranch, and make the findings of fact and adopt the attached ordinance for zoning case Z2304 residences at the ranch. And with that, that concludes our presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Veronica. Council members, any questions for Veronica at this time? She will be able to come back up and respond to any afterwards. So thanks, Veronica.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll have the applicant. Sean, you'll go to this podium.
I was told to go here.
You were? I thought, okay. Oop. Oh, you want to use, thank you. Sorry, Sean. Sorry, Sean. Sorry, Sean.
I just do what
Mr.
I'm
Lake.
told.
Sorry, Mr. Lake. I didn't realize. Oh, you have the thing that you. Thank you. Sean Lake for the applicant. I know you'll introduce yourself. Thank you.
My name is Sean Lake, here on behalf of Langley, Colmena, and Indicap on this project. We appreciate the opportunity to be here. Before I kind of get started, I wanted to go over a couple of things because I think if we look around this room, it's quite different than it was in November of last year, regarding this project. And there has been a substantial amount of work on behalf that the neighbors have put in their time in working with the Langley and Colmena and Indicap on this project to try to work together to try to come up with a solution. And so the first thing I want to say right out of the chutes is express my appreciation for the time that they have put into this, the neighbors and the groups, and it's not just the groups that we've met with, but everybody that has put a lot of time and effort into this, because a lot of thought and blood, sweat, and tears and endless hours of knocking doors that the neighbors have put into this. We certainly appreciate their willingness to work with us on this project and come to you with a plan that is supported by a majority of the people. About 8 months ago, this council, with some different members, but the council for the town of Gilbert had a very different meeting in November of 2022. And at that time, this council directed the applicants and the neighbors, go work it out. Go make something happen. Go get together. Go see if you guys can work it out and reach a compromise. In that, it involved working with neighbors and having open door policies with everybody that wanted to participate, but that's what's happened. That's why we're here this evening, because if something wasn't worked out, we're not coming back to council. We wanted to come back to council with something where we've tried to work and come up with a plan that the majority of people, so at the direction of the council, we are here now 8 months later with a plan that we believe is a good compromise that gets everybody a little of what they're looking for, both with the town as far as economic development and the town council and the broader town of Gilbert, but also Morrison Ranch, who are very, very much affected and the Lennar project by this project. Let me point out, as economic development was just stating, this will be one of the largest projects in the town of Gilbert as far as a tax base goes. We're talking upwards of $1 billion worth of assessed valuation or taxes that could come out of this project. I was on the phone today with our own Eddie Cook, saying, Eddie, what does this mean? Of all the taxes, just taxes, we're not talking jobs that economic development was talking about, just taxes. What does that mean? That goes to benefit, as was pointed out, the secondary property tax and pay for a lot of the things that the town wants that benefit the entire town, but also schools. About 50% of that assessed, or of that tax of this property goes to the school district, which we all want to have better schools and funding for the schools. And so that money then goes to the schools. And that's what we all want with that tax. And that's without producing many children at all, because most of this project will be a commercial type neighbor. So they will not only pay into the system for the school district, but they won't be putting a lot of cool kids in the system, which is what we want, to have that type of assessed valuation. So this is a big deal for the town as a whole, as far as taxation, secondary property tax, school districts, but also jobs and creating a lot. I also want to point out, and it was raised throughout the process, we want this, we want that, we really like that. We need to understand we live in a free market. I'm not a market maker. The developer isn't a market maker. The market is what it is today, but it's going to change. And it changes over time. I've been doing this for 30 years. I can remember doing projects in the town years and years ago, or in the city of Mesa or in the city of Phoenix, where I had planning directors begging me to bring apartment projects because we don't have any. That's not the case today, but the market today is apartment projects and rental projects. But that could change in 2 years. That could change in 5 years. And with this project, that could change as well based upon how the market goes. So as we present this case, understand we're talking multifamily type development. Right now, the market is for rental, but that could change to a for sale type product for a townhome or a condo type product. That's all based upon what the market is when that's coming out of the ground. And we often, I remember in 2007, I converted probably 50 apartment projects to condos. That changes as the market changes. You get through construction defect litigation, those type of things. So I'm not a market maker, but that's what the market is today. Who knows what that market will be in 2 years with this project. We worked extensively with the neighbors, and I thank the neighbors. But I want to point out, we were working through a private use agreement, but we're still committed to put in our CC&Rs restrictions on land uses like semiconductors and those type of things that use hazardous raw materials that could be dangerous. And so we're still going to work with the neighbors and commit, and I wanted to go on the record to say that we're going to work with the neighbors on restricting a lot of uses in our CC&Rs that we've discussed, and we'll work with them as we go forward. And also remind everybody that this process does not stop here tonight with the vote of the council, hopefully. If the council so decides to move this project forward, there's site planning and design review and permitting for many, many, many years. This is a big project that will take a long time to develop. And so we'll be at this, hopefully, with the town to have this project that will benefit the whole town for many, many years to come. And finally, before I get started, I want to point out, I think the change came when we got some people involved in the project that wanted to create a legacy type project here. Not just do another industrial stamp project, cookie cutter, stamp it and go, stamp it and go. When Langley and Stacy got involved and Colmena really stepped up to the plate and said, no, we want to do something different here. We want to work with the neighbors to make something unique and different and outstanding. And so I know it's been Stacy's goal from the beginning in working with these neighbors just to create something that he can continue to be involved in that will be a legacy for this area. And I know in working with Colmena and the Bolin family, they want to create something unique here that is a legacy, something that they're proud of. And we have several legacy projects in the town, but I think this can be another one that we can look back on and be proud on. So having said that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with my presentation. That was my introduction. Sorry about that. I'm being a little long-winded. I'm a little excited about this project because it really has been a lot of work to get to where we are today. As we pointed out in November, we were given a mandate. Go work with the neighbors. Come back to us with something that works for everybody, and we believe we have done that with the majority of the people. We did. We have staff support, we have the Planning Commission support, and we have a lot of neighborhood support for this plan. When we started working with the neighbors, really, in November and December and January and February and March and April, we identified several things that the neighbors were really concerned on that we had to change the plan to address. We had to look at these and make changes to the plan and come back to planning staff. Sorry, I'm pointing to planning. Staff, they're usually sitting over here in the old days. We had to make changes to the plan. We had to work with staff to fit within the law, but also work with the neighbors to make something work that addresses their concerns. And that's what we tried to do with identifying, these are 5 of some of the many issues that we tried to change the plan with. The first was to look at the existing zoning. This is not a vacuum. A typical big zoning case in the old days was acre lot or farming land, where your only other option is just to go farm it or build acre lot homes on it. That's not the case with this property. There's existing industrial zone property on this that goes right up to, we'll say, Morrison Ranch and Langley along our west side. There is existing general commercial zoning that exists on this property today that has rights to develop. For example, the light industrial could build 25-foot landscape strip and building 75 feet off the property line. That would be a right that they have to do. The general commercial, there's about 100 acres of general commercial in the middle. There's a lot of uses that could build right off of the property line on the west side today. Those are existing uses, including residential. Multifamily apartments are allowed in general commercial. That 100 acres in the middle does allow loft over, first floor retail, second, third, fourth floor multifamily apartments under the code today. So those are some things that are allowed today. But that's not a good plan. That's not trying to work with the neighbors. So on the right, we came forward with a conceptual plan and a development plan that Veronica pointed out that we think is far better than what exists there today and addresses buffering and trying to work with these neighbors to make this a better project and to create something like the restaurant district that we're trying to create that really is something cool. So let's go forward. Where were we? The plan started out, if industrial developers had their druthers here, we would be here with a 93% industrial stamp plan with just a bunch of industrial on it. That didn't work. That didn't fly. Nobody liked it. That was changed and dropped down to about 80% plus 10 of business park. Again, a lot of industrial, 80 to 90% type of industrial plan. Again, that didn't work. So we worked with neighbors to come up with a revised plan that created buffers on all sides, bringing that industrial, the true industrial, down to about 65 with some business park at about 5-6% for a total of about 71%, with a lot of really cool mixed-use commercial type development, including a restaurant district in that project. So that's the plan that we came forward. We worked with the neighbors extensively on. Now let's walk through some of that. The first, one of the big issues was the buffer along the west side that doesn't exist on the zoning today. We agreed to work with the neighbors to take where the utility site is on the northwest corner on their eastern property line and just draw a line straight down all the way to Warner and create a big, massive open space buffer between existing residential and residential being developed and the proposed development. That creates the largest buffer I've ever been involved in 30 years of doing this project, of doing this type of work. It's about 16.5 acres of open space. That's equivalent, I think, to, what was it, like 12 football fields lined up along the west side. And a substantial amount of that will be grass and open space that will work with staff going forward. We created some vignettes or some sightline studies of what it's going to look like from and across that open space, from Morrison Ranch open space. You can see up on the top or the bottom right-hand corner where those graphics would be, looking through that open space buffer. So it creates a huge area of landscape and open space across that will help to buffer any future development on this project. One of the other key components was to create a really nice destination restaurant area. And there's a lot that goes in to make, you just don't plop that up in the middle of nowhere. You have to have a lot of things or elements that contribute and make that work. And this plan, we think, does that. But we created this unique destination restaurant retail area, mixed-use area, right there at the entrance to Cactus Yards. Sorry, I've known it for too many years, but right there at the entrance to Cactus Yards, which we think is a good convergence of a lot of activity that's going to not only happening now, but as that grows, and it's busy all the time, but there's a lot of people that will be visiting in addition to the Morrison Ranch, in addition to the people that are going to live here, and in addition to the people that live in the area, that will be able to visit and help make this destination restaurant area successful. We prepared some exhibits, the staff, of the quality of the type of destination restaurant that we'd want to see there at Elliott and Cactus Yard Way. There's a traffic signal there today, and that will be the entrance into that really destination restaurant area. That was a critical component to the neighbors. They wanted something cool, they wanted something unique, and we're committing in this plan to do that with the commercial development. Here's some other some exhibits of what that would look like in working with staff going forward. Should the council approve this, we would work with staff on a site plan and elevations and building elevations and the next step on the design to bring this to fruition. I think everybody's seen these graphics, so I'm going to flip through those for people who haven't seen them in the audience. But really creating that destination area where you can go take your family, go take your partner or whoever you're going to be with, and have a drink or have dinner or just hang out and have a good time. So it's really going to create a unique area. As Veronica pointed out, truck traffic was a big deal. And so we created a truck traffic plan. You can see on this, the yellow would represent how that truck traffic would circulate. We did not want to have trucks accessing Elliott. We wanted to keep Elliott more of a residential, commercial type feel, not a truck area. So you can see with the land plan, we designed it so all the truck traffic will go out to Power and down to Warner. That would be represented by the yellow. And then the passenger vehicle type business and residential type traffic, commercial retail, would be in the black. And that's part of the plan that we're presenting. One of the other things in driving through this area, the roads need to be done. And so with this project, there will be almost $20 million worth of off-site improvements that will be completed with this project. You'll have improvements to Elliott, to Power, to Warner. that will help finish this area off. It's busy and the roads need to be done. This plan is a viable plan and can help get those roadway improvements done at the cost of the developer. So we're excited to see that happen, including a traffic signal kind of at the center of the project that will help facilitate movement in the area of all the truck traffic. Some of the physical buffers. The existing zoning that's there today, as I mentioned early on, they could build industrial buildings 75 feet off of the property line with a 25-foot landscape buffer. We created this huge buffer both with the open space along the west side. Remember all the football fields? That green on the top represents all those football fields along the top, but also with distance and with buildings, where we created the townhome project, which is that two-story kind of in the middle, with a restricted light industrial over adjacent to the Lennar. So your first building's going to be 870 feet away from the property line, in comparison to the existing zoning, which you could build 75 feet off the property line. So it is a big, huge difference and enhancement or betterment of what's existing there today. That vertical construction, both with the business park, restricted light industrial, and the townhomes and the mixed use over there, will create physical structures that will not only separate, but will help with the sound, to help dissipate that sound that would come from over 1,000 feet or more internal to the project with the commercial traffic that goes. So we created distance and vertical physical structures to help with that. I just talked about this. We're also going to be restricting some of the uses in this light industrial area that we've worked with the neighbors. That's part of our plan as well. Here's some views of what that would look like from the Morrison Ranch. We also created a buffer from Elliott Road. That was important to the neighbors, that Elliott remain different. They don't want Elliott to become the truck traffic corridor. Elliott's going to be different, more of a passenger vehicle type commercial retail traffic. And so those buffers with the mixed-use development and the retail development and the restaurant development along Elliott would do that both visually. So as you drive down Elliott, you're going to see residential buildings and retail buildings as opposed to industrial buildings right out on the street. And so that will create a much softer presentation to both Cactus Yards, but everybody who's driving up and down Elliott Road. And here's some renderings of what that could look like with our design submittal with the different projects. This would be the mixed-use project. This is where both the residential and would have some first-floor retail on that's presented in the plan as well. I'm just kind of working through these. I know you've all seen them. You can see some areas with some first-floor residential, first-floor retail on that design. But very high-quality, nice project. So let's talk about the Gilbertown values. I'm doing this tongue-in-cheek, but I think it's also important, and I enjoyed it last time. So that's why I'm doing it this time. I think this project will help, well, let's talk about Be Driven. It will help drive this portion of Gilbert into a different area. It will create substantial employment, jobs, and taxes. With almost $1 billion in valuation that are going to go here, it will benefit both the school districts and secondary property tax, so all of the town of Gilbert, by development here, that the taxes just aren't happening today. So it's driven, it's kind in that we, in working with the community and the neighbors, we created substantial buffers that are significantly more and bigger than exist today. And so it worked with the neighbors to be sensitive to the surrounding community. Bold. This developer is making substantial concessions to try to work with the community. That is very bold in working with them. They're allowing they're proposing, instead of one big stamped industrial project that everybody would like to see, and if you go across the street into Mesa on the other side of the RWCD, that's what you see. Just stamped industrial projects, building after building after building of industrial. This is different. This is bold. This is unique, where they've incorporated a lot of different land uses into this 300 acres to try to make it unique and different, and a place that, as you drive down Elliott or Power or Warner Road, or you live in Morrison Ranch to the west, you can look at it and say, okay, this turned out much better than what Mesa's doing on the other side of RWCD. This is very, very bold. And it's a risk for this developer. Most developers wouldn't take this risk, but I think that goes to the type of legacy project that Colmena and Langley want to do here, to have something that will be, they'll be proud of for years and years and years to come. My favorite one is humble. For those that know zoning attorneys and developers, this is a difficult one to be humble. Because a lot of developers, this is the way it's done, this is the way it's always been done, this is the way we're going to do it. And that type of mentality gets you in trouble. I think that my type of mentality got them in trouble. But when they started to be humble and say, you know what, let's sit down and listen. Let's listen to the neighbors, let's listen to their concerns, let's listen to what they have to say, and then try to work with them to make something happen. That is the humility, I think, that this developer and developers presented to the community to say, hey, we want to do something unique here. We want to do something nice. We want to do something that we're going to be proud of 5 years, 10 years, 30 years from now. And sitting down and listening to the neighbors, to be humble and incorporating those into the plan. That's the difference. There's people that will listen, and then there's people that will incorporate it into the plan. And that's the plan that we've presented to you tonight. We think it's an outstanding plan. We think it's going to be really something that we can be proud of. Now, having said that, we have a recommendation of approval from the planning staff and a recommendation of approval from the Planning Commission. In working with the planning staff, we identified something in condition number 6 that we need to revise. If you remember, over adjacent to the Lennar project here, we have these restricted single-story business park type buildings. These are restricted in height, and all the docks, we designed these buildings so the docks can't face Lennar or Morrison, Lennar here. The docks have to face this way, which means this is the front of these buildings facing the open space. And so these are going to be business suites. And the way the stipulation is written is we can't have signage on the front of these business suites, which is a problem for us, because when you drive up to these buildings, there might be 3 businesses in this building. You need to know which is XYZ Corporation or ABC business. And in working with staff, we said, guys, we have to have some type of signage that when you drive up, you know which suite to go into. They said, we agree, let's work with you. We just don't want big illuminated signs or lit signs that are going to be obnoxious. And that's why we came up with a revision to condition number 6 that we would hope, should the council choose to move forward, would incorporate. I think staff is supportive of this. I'm getting a nod by the front row, that this would allow these business suites up here to have signage on the front door of these businesses. So when people go to work, they know this is, you know, Joe's business and Sally's business, and they're different signs. You got to have that on the front of your business. I don't know anybody that doesn't have a sign on the front of their business to let people know where they are at. So that is important. We hope if you choose to move approval, that you would do it with this revised condition of approval. So I've been a little passionate about it. This is a great project that has taken a lot to get here. I think a lot has been done. Again, I started with this and I'm going to end with this. I want to express our appreciation for the neighbors. There's been a group of neighbors, a large group of neighbors that have worked with us, both in meetings, but also called me directly, called Stacy directly, and called, I'm sure, you council members directly. And we've tried to really listen and incorporate those ideas to come up with a plan that we're presenting to you this evening. So I appreciate those neighbors and their patience. To be at this for 8 months is a big deal, and we appreciate their time in working with us and trying to come forward with a plan that can be supportable by the council. So with that, I'm going to shut down and say thank you very much. We appreciate your time. We hope you can see the value that this project will have to the town as a whole, the value and time and effort that's gone in by the neighbors and the developer to make something that will benefit the town for many, many years to come. And so we hope you can support these 4 different applications, and happy to answer any questions with that.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. I think the neighbors have actually been at it for longer than 8 months. I think you came into it a little later than the neighbors did, and I think they've been at it a little bit longer. with this case in particular. Any questions? Oh, Councilmember Anderson, I see your mic on.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
thank you. I noticed on the site plan, is there a particular reason that we're zoning the open space general commercial?
We didn't know what else to zone it. There's no open space zoning district. I was concerned of zoning it multifamily because then people might think I'm pulling a fast one. So we didn't zone it multifamily. I didn't want to zone it single family. We just picked a category, put it on the development plan, and then restricted it.
Okay. There's not enough depth there to do anything with commercial anyway, so.
There's not, and the development plan wouldn't allow you to do that anyway. It's restricted to be open space only.
And speaking of the open space, could you describe again the treatment of that? It's not all going to be turf, I'm assuming.
No, and that's something we're going to be working with staff. There's conditions that address that, but there will be, because we're adjacent to Morrison Ranch, so there will be some turf incorporated to that. That's addressed in the conditions of approval, and that's something that we, during the site planning and landscape planning and the design review, that we'll be working through that process.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Lake at this time? We will be able to bring him back up for more questions. Councilmember Bongiovanni?
Can I ask one quick question? Oh, I'm sorry. Chuck. It'll be quick. This is kind of a silly question probably, but you keep saying that the traffic, we don't want that traffic on Elliott and it's going to go down Power Road or down Warner Road. It's going to go, is it going out Elliott? Where is it going out from? And I know it's on there, but when they go out, they're going to exit right on Power Road, correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Buckley, let me clarify that. There's two different types of traffic that are generated by this project.
Right.
The first would be more of your truck, big business type traffic. And that would be the center of this development. And that traffic, if you're a truck and you need to go deliver something to another business, the quickest route to do that would be to get out to Power and go down to Power, get on the freeway. Or go out Warner based upon where you're at, and at Warner, go out to Power and get on the freeway and leave. That's where we want to focus the traffic, out to Power and Warner for that big truck type business, heavier business type traffic. That's different than the residential passenger vehicle traffic. So if you live here, or you're eating here in the restaurant area, or you live here, or you're going to this retail area, that traffic will go primarily out to Elliott or to Power, and will go that direction. That's more of your passenger vehicle type traffic that we see out on Elliott Road today. And so we wanted to separate those two different types of traffic so that you didn't have my wife and I going out to dinner, it commingling, or going out to lunch, commingling with an 18-wheeler that's headed to Buckeye, for example.
Yeah. Okay, that explains that well. However, there's no guarantee when those trucks exit onto Power of where they're going to go, whether they may go down to Power and turn left and still go down Elliott or still go down Warner. That's a bit of a concern for me. I mean, we can't guarantee where they're going to go, and I get that you are trying your best to have them exit in the most appropriate way. But I have a little bit of concern because they could take Elliott or they could take Warner all the way out to the 101, the arterial interior road. So I have a little bit of concerns about that, but I just wanted to clarify with you exactly where that's going.
That's a great point. We've talked with our traffic engineer about that. Particularly your bigger vehicles like an 18-wheeler. I don't see them, they don't like arterial roadways or collector roadways. They want freeways. And so
Not their preference.
For them, they physically, because of the buffer that we've created here along Elliott, there's no way for them to drive out to Elliott. So for a big truck to get to Elliott Road, they're going to have to go out to the traffic signal on Power and decide, do I want to go get on the freeway and go to the 101, or do I want to go back to Elliott and take a surface road somewhere to get on a freeway to go where I'm going. Our traffic engineer looked at this and believes that just about all the big trucks, they're going to choose, first and foremost, get on the freeway, less accidents, less problems. We can control our drivers how they, when the tenants lease buildings, where they go and how they go. But once they get on an arterial roadway, there's nothing to, I guess, stop a 18-wheeler from going wherever they want. They could, but we think they're all pretty much going to go down to the freeway and head out of town wherever they're headed.
Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Thank you.
Hello, Sean.
Yes, sir.
Thought you were far away from me because you weren't going to include
I'm
the Gilbert values in here.
I'm about 10 yards further.
Yep. Okay, quick question for you. I noticed that the truck bays, you're not going to face towards the neighborhood. Any consideration for these apartments / potential condos to have the back of those buildings not have windows so they don't look outside and see these big buildings either? Can you put the bathrooms maybe, I know you're not there yet, but maybe put the bathrooms in the back of the buildings so there's no windows facing the industrial buildings? Because I wouldn't want to have an apartment or a condo looking outside and seeing a building like that.
Mayor, Councilmember Bongiovanni, a great point, and that's something we have talked with staff about designing these buildings, and that's the next step. That's the site plan design review. And you can see on some of these, or these buildings, we've tried to design it. So for example, here on the Elliott Road side, we've tried to design that those buildings face either east or west as opposed to south, so that your front porches and your patios and your areas that you would go would go into other residential areas. We don't want any porches, patios, or those type of things facing to the south to the industrial. Likewise, on these buildings, we can work with staff to try to design it. Maybe we put the garage of some of the units up against facing the industrial, because they want to go to the other side where the patio is. So that's something we can definitely work through with staff to minimize as much as possible that.
Okay, thanks.
Councilmember Torgerson.
Mr. Lake.
Yes, sir.
With the current zoning, people could put industrial, this was the problem I believe we were encountering in November. People could have industrial facing Morrison Ranch, correct?
Yes, let me go to that. So with the existing zoning on the property, that light industrial or the business park type uses, those could be facing. There's no restrictions on design or dock doors. It can be much closer. The zoning code only requires those buildings be 75 feet away. And our open space tract alone is 280 feet in that area. And so just the open space, let alone the townhomes or the mixed-use homes that are going in there.
Right, and that's by right.
By right. Could
Okay.
do it. They could go design and submit a DR package today and do that.
Okay, and then there's about 70 acres of GC, which could be mixed-use apartments, et cetera, at this point. And with the rezoning, that comes down to about half of that?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Torgerson, yes. I was estimating, because in the old days when this was zoned, we didn't have exact we probably should have, but we didn't have exact legal descriptions. The general commercial is about 100 acres, which was in staff's presentation. The current Gilbert Town Code allows loftover residential in general commercial by right. And what that means, it's a mixed-use type project like Epic Center, where you could do 2, 3, 4 stories up to 45 feet by right in that 100 acres. And so if somebody wanted to do first floor retail with second, third, fourth floor residential in the general commercial in the center, they could go do that by right today. Just submit a site plan, a design review, and go with it. Now, I haven't pushed that because this process has not been about threatening or anything. This has been about, guys, let's work together to come up with a plan. But you're right. There is a right now on that 100 acres to do apartments on it, multifamily, that would be much closer.
And by this plan, with the agreement and the pad, it brings it down to, am I reading 34 acres from almost 100?
We would be about, there'd be about 14 acres of townhomes here, which is two-story type townhomes, which is a lot less impactful. And then this would be a mixed-use project, first-floor retail type use with residential that's about 11 acres, 9 acres, and then this is about 11.7. So you got 11.7 plus 9 is 20. That would be mixed use, 3-story type stuff, and then 14 acres of 2-story. So 34 acres versus 100 acres. So it brings it about a third of what it is today.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Lake at this time? Mr. Lake, you may have a seat
Thank you.
and rest your voice for a little while. I know you'll be back. Now we'll move into our public testimony. The Vice Mayor has the slips of anyone wishing to make comments on this issue this evening. Vice Mayor, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we begin calling people up, I wanted to note that I have 3 cards where they did not wish to speak. Daniel Straza, against. Mark Brumlett, for. Johnny Birkinshaw, for. So those 3 did not wish to speak. We had a resident who requested, I think 24 hours ago, or more, to have additional time and speak on behalf of others. I know that that's not what we do every time, and I just want to check with the council to make sure there's no objections before we move forward. Okay, thank you. Sarah Straza will be allowed to speak for 6 minutes, and she is speaking on behalf of herself, Tessa Lee, Deb Grover, Sarah Groves, Kelly Johnston, Mark Lawless, Jamie Lawless, Jennifer Pullman, Brandon Stinn, and Chelsea Good. Sarah, if you would come forward. Chevelle, are you able to do 6 minutes? Great. Once Sarah is completed, then we'll go to the 3 minutes each for the rest of the, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, staff, Town Council, Mayor Peterson. My name is Sarah Strauss, and I stand before you tonight as a resident of Morrison Ranch community, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. You know how very important this is to the community, and after hearing all this, my speech is a reiteration of some of this, so for time's sake, I'll condense some of my points. I want to acknowledge the developer and Stacy Brimhall. They've made some concessions that were tremendously meaningful to the community. For example, the developer improved the circulation, as he spoke to. The biggest one was diverting the semi-trucks and then also blocking so it doesn't go near the cactus yards or that church that's right there. That was very important to a lot of the folks in the neighborhood. The prior proposal just didn't have that safety or quality of life for the residents of Morrison Ranch, so that was a very big improvement. The amenity was placed on the western border, as Sean had mentioned, that sound barrier and safety barrier, and that POD overlay limits the building heights, that border, that western edge, which was very important to provide a transition zone. All of the crosstalks, as you said, aren't facing, and that was really wonderful as well. People were concerned about the sound. Increased walkability was added with dining and entertainment, and then a thoughtful mixed-use zoning was incorporated with the consideration of luxury multifamily over commercial buildings to ensure that the people that work in engineering jobs, adjacent industrial spaces would have the ability to have residency for any work contracts that were near there, promoting like industry and growth without disrupting the character area and providing transition. Additionally, the developer has proposed putting in use restrictions in a property document that would restrict harmful manufacturing. These would prohibit any end users at any time now or in the future to manufacture noxious or harmful chemicals, prohibit semiconductor or chip manufacturing, EV battery storage and manufacturing. I only speak for myself, but personally, this was extremely important and helped me have not as many reservations. Gilbert is at a precipice, and we do not want to fall. History has shown industry operations can sometimes expand beyond their original plans and reassurances, and the long-term effects can be detrimental to nearby communities. So it's vital that our town council prioritize the interests and safety of the residents they represent, both now and in the future. If this proposed zoning is passed, I respectfully request that the town council votes against any use permit applications for semiconductor computer chip manufacturing, as well as electric battery storage, recycling, and manufacturing in this area. My biggest hope, being a dedicated part of this process, was to unite all of us as a community to make changes that lead to prosperity and meaningful growth for all parties involved. On a personal note, I would love to see aquaponics in a desalination plant, just because of our water demand issues. I appreciate the developer's willingness to reduce industrial zoning to more general commercial and mixed-use zoning. These changes will help to create a more diverse zoning, which is essential for a town like Gilbert. I believe that the proposed development is a vast improvement from what was initially proposed, and the developer took our concerns seriously. Ultimately, the responsibility of making the final decision lies within the town council, as you're entrusted to represent the best interests of the community. I trust that you'll take this into account, our concerns, our opinions of the constituents, while carefully evaluating the potential risks and benefits of this development. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, we have Brandon Riff, and following Brandon will be Jennifer Wada.
Good evening. I'll try to condense some of my comments to avoid repetition, but the fact is, last year I received a phone call from a council member that said, he said that this plan was probably going to pass. They had the votes, and I was pretty upset about it until he told me to wait a second. The developer, I want you to meet this guy. He doesn't want to ramrod this thing through. He wants to work with you guys. Will you guys meet with him? And I said, absolutely, let's set it up. And his name is Stacy Brimhall, and he's present. I don't know if he's going to speak or not, but I want to make sure everybody understands that he voluntarily set this up when he could have rammed it through and didn't have to do any of this. I think that's really, really unique and really speaks to his character. But we all came together, and we're talking a dozen meetings, and I probably spent close to 100 hours. And I know that I wasn't alone in doing that in the group of residents that worked together to make this thing happen. It's true, apartments and industrial aren't popular with residents, and this proposal does have both. I ask that everybody look at the bigger picture, because this plan has significant changes that will protect the people of Morrison Ranch. If you vote for it, this will secure those critical protections for Morrison Ranch residents. If you vote against it, this will surrender those critical protections. And that means that the next time a developer comes along, and he may not be as kind as Stacy Brimhall, it means we start over again. It means that we begin the whole process of trying to secure all of these protections that we've worked so hard to establish. This has been a grueling process, and it's come at an incredible price to me and my family, my business. Time spent on this away from my wife and kids, time I will never get back. And I know that the other residents made these same sacrifices, all for the betterment of the community. Again, the industrial and apartments, I know neither are popular. I want to applaud some of the council members, in particular Jim Torgerson, and Chuck for that matter, who have pushed very hard to make the apartments, instead of rentals, turn it into a fee simple type of structure with townhomes, condominiums, to make it so that people can afford homes sooner than they would otherwise by paying somebody else's mortgage through rent, and promoting strong ties to the community with that. I'll finish up here. I'd like to thank the council for supporting this process and for putting us up to the process. This should hopefully serve as a model for how residents and developers can and should work together. And the council members who supported all of this and were open for communication from all of us in the group, I sincerely thank you, and urge you to please vote to approve this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon. Next, we have Jennifer Wada, and following Jennifer will be Ryan Handelsman.
Mayor Peterson, council members, my name is Jennifer Wada, and I live in the Elliott Grove subdivision of Morrison Ranch. I'm greatly relieved to be here speaking to you about a plan that has changed significantly since the council meeting last November. As part of the group of Morrison Ranch residents who have been communicating with the developer to relay the concerns of the neighborhood, I can say that the process to get here wasn't perfect, and the plan before you tonight reflects a lot of hard work and, frankly, a lot of compromise. But there has been significant improvement, and I, like many of my friends and neighbors, no longer oppose it. I'm not here to tell you how to vote, to complain, to praise, or to make suggestions, but I do have a request. I'm thankful for the involvement of the developer and their willingness to listen to our community's concerns. They shared a few different plans over recent months, including at the neighborhood meeting, and made changes based on the comments and feedback they received. We as residents didn't get everything we asked for, and most of us still believe it's too much residential near our neighborhood. But with the added retail, transitional residential buffer, and green space amenity, we hope that what has made this project bearable on paper will also make it bearable, and parts of it even enjoyable, when it's built out. That leads to my request. If this project receives your approval, we will be at the mercy of the town and the developer to see that it gets built the way it's been presented. Yes, there might be small necessary engineering or design changes that make a little difference, but should any significant changes or requests be presented, we are trusting the town, including this council, the Planning Commission, and town staff, to uphold the vision and the plan that you approved. A number of residents have dedicated significant time, effort, and resources for the better part of a year now, some even longer, and any lack of opposition from our neighborhood has been not just because of the plan's elements, but also because we were assured it was created with integrity and honest intention. Tonight, if you vote to approve this project, I'm asking that before you and other town departments make any decisions down the road that may come before you in the future of this project, you consider a few things, including all that the neighborhood went through to get to the point we're at tonight, the impact it will have on the residents in close proximity, the integrity of our town government, and the value of having and enforcing accountability. It would be greatly appreciated. I would like to also at this time thank Vice Mayor Kathy Tilke. She stepped up to be the town liaison for the discussions between the neighbors and the developer, and she has stood by us the entire time, dedicated to transparency, providing information, support, and honest feedback. I'm also thankful that the development team was open to creating a plan that has more benefits and less impact on our community than the original plan. And lastly, I'm grateful to my fellow neighbors who stepped up and tirelessly gave of their time, talents, and heart in dedication to protecting and maintaining a neighborhood that we all love. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Ryan, following Ryan is Kevin Marvin.
Good evening, everybody. Ryan Handelsman, Town of Gilbert. A lot of this probably will be repetitive, but I think it's all for the positive. Echoing what was said already, 8 months ago, I was one of many at the forefront of a mission and a movement to take what was originally a horrific plan and make sure it met its demise. Some of you were on the previous council and ultimately decided to table that vote and gave us explicit direction as a community to go back to the neighbors, to go back to the developers, and go to the drawing board and see if we can sort of work things out. It was an open invitation to any community member that wished to step up to the plate, which ultimately, through time, whittled down to about 7 of us, many of which you heard already speak, who spent countless hours with both the developer and various members of the community as well to make a plan on a plan that is before you today. Every step of the way, both the neighbors and the developers took the time to go back to the community at large for feedback. The majority of the community became more and more accepting of the plan as each iteration of the plan continued to be presented to us. And it all, over time, addressed a lot of the hot topics that you heard Sarah and some of the other people come and talk about, such as safety, traffic, use restrictions, transition areas, and the desire for additional retail in a place that was quote-unquote cool, as per the packet. Since this agenda item, I believe you have the opportunity to ask us questions, so I welcome them. But if, in anticipation of perhaps the one or two comment cards that you saw, there might be a couple people that stand before you tonight in blatant opposition of the plan. And I know that if I was sitting in your position, I would be curious to know, were they all involved in all of the opportunities that were presented themselves along the way? If anybody stands here before you and is in blatant opposition of the plan, I would be curious, were they at the neighborhood meeting that only 20 or 30 people showed up to? Were they at the two plannings and zoning meetings that I was at? I mean, I was one of two citizens that showed up to those meetings. And I can speak on behalf of the community and say that whether it be Stacy or Colmena or Sean's office, it was an open door policy. So at any point leading up to tonight, they had plenty of times to be constructive in the process. Some people, again, will simply want to argue and oppose something and not be willing to be constructive and provide a way to resolve. But with the help of the community and council members and developers working together, we've gone from arguably, if I remember correctly, 1,500 people in opposition in that November meeting to only a handful. And I think that is a testament to all, and I'm proud to be a part of the process, and I am excited to hopefully patron some of these destinations of restaurants and retail shops. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Kevin, you're up, and following Kevin is Jace Robinson.
Can you hear me? Okay. I'm Kevin Marvin, a Gilbert resident in Morrison Ranch, and I've spoke with you a number of times on this. When I got my 1 minute in November, at the very end, I talked about a win-win, and I think Jennifer summed up everything I would want to say. So, you know, there's really not a lot more to be said there, but really thank everyone who participated and put the tireless hours in. It was a great team effort, and I really appreciate that. So I believe we're at the win-win state. It's a compromise, sure, but it is a win-win. And so what I'd like to talk about is just, what have we learned from this? Are we going to make changes in how maybe the Planning Commission works? Because the majority of them, when they approved this like in October and recommended it, they all said the transition wasn't good enough, but still the majority voted for it. And that's just still baffling to me. And so I hope we're figuring out a way to use this as a model for the future so it doesn't take heroic efforts, because it really was a heroic effort by so many people, and it doesn't have to be that way. And so that's what I ask for, is for the other projects that come, forward. But I do ask you to approve this. I am in favor of it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Jace, following Jace is Josh Brimhall.
My name is Jace Robinson. I live at 3931 East Gale Drive, and I'm in favor of the ranch. Thank you.
Thank you, Jace. Josh, if you'll come forward, and following Josh will be Stacy Brimhall.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. My name is Josh Brimhall. I'm with Langley Properties. More importantly, I'm a sixth-generation Arizonan. Great-great-grandparents, long history in Arizona. Specifically, actually, I spent a majority of my life in the town of Gilbert, and intend to keep doing that, actually. It's the one thing my wife and I can agree on, is is living in, having our kids raised in Gilbert, go to school in Gilbert all the way up through high school. So that's our plan. And in regards to this specific plan that you guys will be voting on tonight, the I kind of have the same attitude as I do with the town of Gilbert, being involved, being involved in Gilbert and then continue to be involved in Gilbert. With this plan, a lot of people put a lot of work into it, a lot of meetings, a lot of collaboration, a lot of time, and we all came to a plan that we can all somewhat agree that works. And so tonight, I'm in favor of the plan and ask for your approval, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Josh. Stacy, you're up next, and following Stacy will be Brian Mosley.
Hi, Mayor and Council. My name's Stacy Brimhall. I'm better known as Josh's dad, and I'm not as well, I can't speak as well as he can, nor am I as near as good looking as he is, but he is sixth generation Arizonan, and we're vested, and this is our town, and you know, it will be a place where not only where we raised our kids, but where our grandkids will be raised and great-grandkids will be raised, and we want something really great and a legacy of that. But I'd like to just primarily focus on something that I learned or what I relearned through this process. So growing up in Gilbert, we didn't have a street sweep. And downtown Gilbert would get a lot of cotton and a lot of hay off the trucks blown into the gutters. And without a street sweep, it got really quite ugly. And every month, my mother would get us all together, and we'd close down Gilbert Road, I guess without a permit. And sorry, police guys. And she'd get all our friends, and we would clean Gilbert Road. She taught us volunteerism, and it wasn't always fun, but we did it, and we did it every month. And so that was how I was raised. But so what I relearned from the Morrison Ranch neighbors, the ones especially that got heavily involved, is the importance of volunteerism, and it kind of renewed my spirits in humanity. And so I just want to say thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Brian, and Brian will be the last speaker tonight.
Hello, I'm Brian Mosley, resident of Morrison Ranch. I think even the new council members remember that I like to start with a story. So last night I was talking with my just turned 18-year-old son about whether it's really worth it to vote. Because, you know, gerrymandering and all the things that he's learning about in high school, getting his civics education, and whether it's all rigged. And, you know, I tried to explain to him how important it was. And I think, you know, I told him that, you know, I knew I was going to have this same dilemma tonight, which is that, you know, we had 1,500 people vote and participate last time and tell you what they felt. And, you know, it's summer, some people are going to be out of town, but even so, we have less people. We have to assume that means that a lot of them are not as opposed, but I don't know. You know, like I say, I didn't try to ask my neighbors to represent a bunch of people and take a lot of time tonight, because I know some of them, you know, have mixed feelings about this. And, you know, it's much easier to oppose something and get people to be all on board with opposing it than to say, you know, this is far enough. You know, my goal from the beginning was to push this as far as we could, and to make as many improvements as possible so that it wouldn't mess up our neighborhood. I live right up against it. And, you know, from our perspective, it was a done deal and it was going to be approved, and we appreciate the support of the council to tell them that it wasn't good enough and to make them come back and work with us. And, you know, Mr. Lake would say this is, you know, a huge open space, 16.5 acres or 16.7 acres, and I would say, you know, we only gave up 3.3 acres of the 20-acre amenity that's currently planned under the current zoning. And he would say that, you know,
they gave up, maybe a quarter of the light industrial that they're asking for, and I'd say, well, we only, allowed a 3 to 4 times increase. So, it is more. It's more light industrial than we want. There's not everybody excited about multifamily for sure, but to have somebody, build something that works with the neighborhood, that respects the neighborhood that's there, that we can look out from the end of our street and have a good view, that we can get out to and connect to the restaurants and retail and have an opportunity to really do that, I think is something that, I just don't know will come next time. And that's why I support this, and I appreciate the changes that have been made. And, it's been a long process. It's been a lot of time, as people have said. And, been some bad feelings all around or animosity and things like that. And so, but I appreciate the chance to participate in this process, and that it listened and that you listened, that it was a an effective process that brought about real change. And I guess I'll say in closing that like I say, I support it at this point, and I think that it's made good changes. I look forward to eating there, and maybe as an attorney myself, I feel bad in particular for Adam Baugh, who had to represent the developers at a time when they hadn't been taken down a peg and they weren't quite ready to work with us. So don't shoot the messenger, and then maybe I'll take him out to eat at one of these restaurants someday. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Mayor, that is the end of the public comments.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Next on our order of proceedings, we will have the applicant come back up and respond. Do you want to? Or why are you shaking your? Councilmember Anderson?
I don't have a question for you, Sean. Thank you. I have a question, somebody else may have, but I'd like Jennifer to come back up for a second, if we could. Just a couple of things to kind of illustrate how important this project is to the town, I think.
Councilmember Anderson, 1 second. Is it okay if we go out of order of proceedings, because this is a public hearing and we do have a very specific order of proceedings that we're supposed to follow, Chris? So I just want to.
Thank you, Mayor. Probably be best to see if there's any other questions for the applicant.
For the applicant first.
And then we could move it. If not, we can just continue on.
Thank you. And I heard that I had a question over here for the applicant, so, sorry, Jen.
No problem.
Mr. Lake, if you could come back up, please. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Sean, Mr. Lake, apologize.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you briefly mentioned some items that you were willing to put in the CC&Rs. It came up in the comments. I wonder if you could just reiterate the commitment to put those items in a CC&R.
Yes, in working with the neighbors, there are a list of uses that we have agreed to work with them to incorporate into the CC&Rs that would prohibit uses such as sexually oriented business, dispensaries, crematories. Sorry, I don't have my glasses on. Recycling, primary businesses are recycling type facilities, hazardous waste storage and manufacture, those type of hazardous materials, semiconductor type, using raw materials to create semiconductors that can be dangerous to the community. And working with them, we had like a distance for firearm sales that we were going to incorporate. So yes, we're going to continue to work with them to incorporate those into the CC&Rs.
Thank you very much. That's all I had, Mayor.
Any other questions for the applicant at this time? This is your opportunity to ask him questions, if you have any. Thank you, Mr. Lake.
Thank you.
Now we can bring staff up, and if we'll ask Jennifer to come up first, please. Jennifer. Thank you, Jen. Councilmember Anderson.
Sorry, Jen.
You're fine. Councilmember Anderson.
You showed us a pie chart that showed the land use percentages in town.
Yes.
Do you happen to know, it showed residential is 58%. Do you happen to know what percent of that residential is in multifamily?
Mayor, Councilmember Anderson, I don't know that percentage breakdown off the top of my head.
How about Ava or
I would phone
Kyle?
a friend to my planning
Yeah,
colleagues.
phone a friend. Maybe one of them know. just an estimate.
Mayor, Councilmember Anderson, Ava Kutro, Planning Manager. Last year, we ran some statistics, and it's about 10% of all residential in the town is multifamily.
And just for reference, what is it in Mesa and Tempe?
I don't know theirs in particular, but we were the lowest in the area.
In the valley,
Mhm.
yes. It's probably pushing 50%, 40 to 50%, I would guess. 50 and 52. Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
other number was 6% for industrial, and it's always been my understanding that we should be pushing 10% to avoid being a bedroom community. Is that accurate?
Mayor, Councilmember Anderson, that's about right. And I should just point out that that 6% is not just industrial. That's all employment designated. So
employment.
that would be including our business park office. So the land uses that are industrial as well as the general office land uses make up only 6% of our land use.
Thank you. And the only reason I bring those both up is that it shows the importance of this project and what it brings to the town, and I think is very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Anderson. Veronica, if you would like to come back up, does the council have any questions for Veronica or planning staff at this time?
Mayor,
Yes, Vice Mayor.
if it's not a question, can I just make a comment? Or do I, it's to Veronica? Yes. Okay, thanks. Veronica, I just wanted to say thank you. You have been there every time I've called when the residents have had a question, and I always wanted to make sure I gave them the right answer, and you've been there, and thank you. I know this process is a little different than we're used to, but I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you very much.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, thank you very much. I do appreciate that.
I haven't asked Councilmember Kaprowski. Do you have any questions? I think she would have said something if she has any questions. Councilmember Kaprowski?
Thank you for checking in. I don't have any questions at this time.
Thank you. Veronica, we heard the comments about the use permit, and I just wanted to ask you if you could review what a use permit process is in the future, because they don't necessarily come to the Gilbert Council, they go to the Planning Commission. Could you cover that, please?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. For some of the uses that have been talked about do require a conditional use permit. The process for that, it is a public hearing process. It's a public hearing to the Planning Commission, though. They make the ultimate decision on the use permit process.
If there was an appeal, it would come to the town council on the use permit.
Mayor, that's correct. Appeals at that point would then be heard by the council.
I just wanted to be clear on the process in case anybody thought that they would automatically be coming to the council. Yes, thank you. Any other questions for Veronica? Seeing none, Veronica, you may have a seat.
Mayor, if
Yes.
I may, I would just like to comment on the
Please.
proposed change to the stipulation that Mr. Lake referred to. That would be within the zoning ordinance for the 271-acre zoning case, the Z2205, and staff is in support of that change. The initial reason for that condition was we didn't not want any lit signs to be projecting towards the residents. So making that clarification in that condition, staff is supportive of.
Thanks for covering that, Veronica. Yes, Councilmember Anderson?
How about A-frame signs?
Those are covered under the sign code for the town of Gilbert. Thank you, Veronica. I don't see any other further comments. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add that you heard?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the dais for discussion. Would anyone like to make some comments? Councilmember Anderson?
I'll lead it off briefly. I want to thank especially they've always been affectionately referred to as the G7. I don't know who all they are out there, but thank you so much for being involved, and all the other residents who've been involved throughout this process. and especially to the council members that have been involved. Thank you so much. Planning is a process. It's not an event, and sometimes it's a messy process. But the idea is to get to a point where we find the best solution that will benefit everybody that's concerned with whatever we're working on in planning. And I think Brandon was right. This is kind of a case study that we have coming before us compared to when you compare what happened in November and what happened tonight. I have to take my hat off to everyone, including our staff that has been involved in this process. And it should be something that is looked on in other communities as an example of a way that neighborhoods can work together with town staff and with the council and developer and come to a solution that benefits the community as a whole. And I commend you for what you've been able to do. Thank you.
Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Wow, it's been a journey, you know. I started on that side of the dais with this thing, with the pitchforks. And from there, gone to about a number of meetings, 2,000 pages of reading material, which everyone here has had, and some of them have actually more of that. Countless hours also, but to see the community go from enraged to engaged was remarkable to see. I really appreciated that. I see some benefits here. Kodak was in my school district when I was younger, so I saw the benefits of having that kind of tax base for my education when I was younger. And a good friend of mine mentioned to me the other day that the best negotiation is when everyone walks away not happy, but satisfied. And I think that's exactly what happened and what's happening here. I mean, personally, I'm not excited about 750 apartments or condos without any kind of property maintenance ordinance yet. But I can walk away from this satisfied seeing what everyone's done. When Mr. Lake first started this project, he was talking about Disneyland, you know, for that restaurant area. And I was really concerned that it was going to turn into a 25-cent horse ride at Walmart. But it didn't. He stayed true to his word on that. The coolest thing that I saw through this whole process was the engagement of the citizens, working with council, working with staff, seeing everyone had a goal together. And the best thing I saw throughout this whole process is the convergence of being humble, bold, driven, and kind, which are our Gilbert values. So thank you, everybody involved.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to thank the residents for coming together when the developer was ready to have these conversations, because you didn't have to do that. I was invited in, and I didn't know what to expect when I showed up and met you all and worked through this process. It was a hard process, but you stuck together, and I appreciate getting to know each of you individually as we've gone through, because you don't always have that opportunity when we're sitting up here and you have a one time to come talk to us and then we never see you again. There was a lot of concessions made. I've been in this business, I guess, through the chamber, through economic development efforts for 33 years before I retired, and I've never seen a developer work so hard and give so much to what the residents wanted. And that's a testament not only to the developer, but to the residents, because you were willing to have those hard conversations. You were willing to make some of those compromises for the betterment of the whole community while protecting your neighborhoods. And I want you to be very proud of the time and the effort, because it did take a lot of time away from your business, from your families. I know, I was there for a lot of those meetings, and I understand. So we are here today to vote on a project that the community came together for a much better project than we had at the beginning. As I mentioned, thank you to Veronica, but the entire staff, they were always there willing to do what they had to do to get us to the next stage, but always staying tight on the quality and the standards of what makes Gilbert great. And I feel very confident that as we move this project forward, everything that is in writing will be adhered to. They will not get past our staff because they have the integrity and the best interest of this community the same as you do and as the developer has already put forward for us to be here today. I am supportive of these projects, and I know other people want to talk, so I'll just stop at that point. Thank you.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Torgerson?
I just wanted to say that I'm going to have to eat some humble pie on this because in engaging in this process, I saw a developer, well, humble himself, and I looked at what could have been by right, and I see something that's come out of this that is, through engagement, an acceptable thing to the most affected people by the project. And it by all metrics, it's a great-looking project, and it'll be good for our town. And everybody accepted a little less than they wanted to get there. And, you know, again, to see them not have industrial facing these homes, for them not to build up to 100 acres of mixed-use apartments and bring this down. I'm really impressed by Mr. Brimhall. Mr. Lake stuck to this and worked extremely hard and patiently. And, you know, I feel that a lot of people here have earned my respect. And again, I have to humble myself in this and look and see what this is, I feel, by far the best thing for the town. And I appreciate, whether it's the mayor or the council people that were here before me, letting us engage in this way. Kicking the can down the road wasn't kicking it down. It kicked it down to make a better product. And I'm just grateful to have been part of it and to have met some of these people that really gave of themselves. And I just wanted to say that.
Councilmember Kaprowski?
I would just like to reiterate the thank yous to the community members and the developer and other stakeholders in this project, but everything else has been said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kaprowski. Councilmember Buckley? You don't have any comments? I would like to thank Vice Mayor Tilke for stepping up and being involved in the process. Obviously, because of open meeting laws, we are very limited in how much we can all participate at the same time together on any given topic. And so it makes it very difficult for us when we have 1, 2, or 3 people stepping up to be part of the process, then the rest of us cannot. And it looks like maybe we're not engaged as much or don't want to be engaged, but that's not the case. We just can't have the opportunity to be engaged because of the way that state law is written. And I appreciate, I had never met Mr. Brimhall, and I think you're just as good looking as your son, so. And you're 5th generation Arizonan, if Jace is 6th generation, right? And Jace, I love that the one thing that your wife and you agree on is bringing up your kids in Gilbert. I appreciate that too. I appreciate the fact that you were so willing to work. We were at a very difficult spot in November when we were facing the fact that this case had to be settled by the end of the year, or being told that we had to settle this case by the end of the year, and then being told, no, you don't have to settle this case by the end of the year, and having it brought to us to be continued. And I think we were all just a little verklempt as to how to best handle that at that time. I've done a lot of planning cases over the years, 184 meetings with the planning commission in my time on that commission, and I've seen hundreds and hundreds of cases very similar to this one, that developers and neighbors have come together to work to come out with a better product so many times, and I think you all went above and beyond in this case, and I appreciate the fact that you all did that. It's been said that we're not fans of the 750 units of multifamily. I don't like that fact at all. It puts so much more multifamily in Morrison Ranch and between Gabriella Point and that location. It's not something that I would have chosen as an option for this property. I've struggled with this case a lot. I haven't liked it from the beginning, and to have to now make the final decision on the case this evening is a difficult one. And like I said, I've done hundreds of these. This is a huge piece of property. I know you've all come here with the best case scenario, I think, for everybody. You've come to a compromise and you've come with the best case scenario for everyone. So I will wait for somebody to make some motions. They have to be done separately. We have to have a general plan motion for GP 22-05. We have to have a zoning motion for Z 22-05, and then we will also need to have a separate motion for GP 23-12 and a separate zoning motion for Z 23-04, because there are 4 separate entities in this case. If anyone would like to attempt the first motion?
Mayor, may I interrupt real
Yes,
quick?
please,
Just a
Chris.
reminder for the motion on the zoning for the Z 2205, if council wanted to include that stipulation about the signage, they would need to include that. That's stipulation number 6, I believe. And you could just refer to the signage stipulation number 6.
That would be on
Z
motion
2205.
B.
Yeah.
And you could say to include what that stipulation as modified this evening. And you also need to say, move to make the findings of fact for that item, because it's a zoning item. They're written out in, oh, you don't have your packet, sorry. So would someone like to make the first motion for the
I
general
think
plan?
I'm prepared. So the first motion is to approve general plan GP 2205.
Can I?
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Tilke, a second by Councilmember Bongiovanni. Please vote.
Mayor, we have a yes vote for item 38 as well from Councilmember Bobrowski.
And the motion passes 6-1 in this case, and it needed to pass with a 5-2 vote in order for a supermajority for that general plan. Now, the second one would be for the Z 22-05, if someone would like to make a motion.
I'm happy to, but let me know if you want to jump in anytime. I'll make a motion to approve zoning Z 2205 with the addition of stipulation number 6 as presented tonight.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Tilke,
I'll second that one, too.
second by Councilmember Bongiovanni. Please vote.
Mayor, we have a yes vote for item 38 zoning, Z 2205 from Councilmember Bobrowski.
Thank you, Chiavelli. That motion passes also with a 6-1 vote. Moving on to the next item, which is GP 23-12. If someone would like to, the motion in our packet says move to recommend approval. The town council moves to approve GP 23-12. If someone would like to make that motion.
Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve general plan GP 23-12.
I have a motion by Councilmember Anderson.
I'll second that.
Second by Councilmember Torgerson. Please vote.
I have a yes vote for Councilmember Kaprowski for item 39, General Plan GP 2312.
Thank you. And that motion passes with a 6-1 vote. And the next one would be the Z23-04.
I'll move approval of zoning case Z23-04 and make the findings of fact.
I have a motion by Councilmember Anderson. I'll second that. Seconded by Councilmember Torgerson. Please vote.
I have a yes vote from Councilmember Kaprowski for item 39, zoning case Z23-04.
Thank you, Chevelle. That motion passes 6-1. All four of those, the nay vote was Councilmember Buckley. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to ask for a break before we move on to the rest of our agenda. Thank you to the residents for attending this evening. And we'll take I don't even know what time it is, about a 5-minute break. Okay, folks, I'm going to give everybody a 30-second warning. We have more items on our agenda to get through and still another meeting to do. Okay, everybody, we're coming back to our meeting. We have a few more items on our agenda, and the council still has an executive session to go, so we need to, sorry about that, sorry to remind you about that, but item number 43A, council administration, is to consider adoption of a resolution designating the chief fiscal officer to submit the FY 2023-2024 expenditure limitation report to the Office of the Arizona Auditor General. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this item? Usually it's you. Okay. Vice Mayor doesn't have any questions, and Vice Mayor's ready to make an item, a motion. If 43A, we're on item 43A.
Which is an addendum. So I'd like to make a motion to approve 43A.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Tilke to approve 43A.
I'll second that.
I have a second by Councilmember Torgerson. Please vote. Oh, is Councilmember Kaprowski back on? I think so.
She is, Mayor, and she is a yes for item 43A.
Thank you, Chiavelli. Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to boards, commissions, and committees. I know that Councilmember Kaprowski has a comment that she would like to make about the new Public Works Board. Councilmember Kaprowski?
Thank you. There are current board openings for the town's new Public Works Advisory Board. The new board will consist of 9 volunteer positions, and they must live in the town of Gilbert. The applications close on July 9th, but may be extended. Hopefully we'll get interest and would love a broad spectrum of applicants from the public works industry. If you want to apply, you can go to gilbertaz.gov/board openings. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Kaprowski. Does anyone else have any other reports from council liaisons on their boards, commissions, and committees? Seeing none, we'll move on to policy items. Number 45, we have a few items here. Number 45A is repeal of Council Policy 2012-03. B is approval of Council Policy, well, we'll start with A. A repeal of Council Policy 2012-03 adopted August 2nd, 2012 and revised November 2nd, 2021, known as the Code of Ethics for Members of the Town Council and Boards, Commissions, and Committees, with an effective repeal date of August 20th, 2023. Any discussion, or would somebody just like to make a motion for that?
Just make a motion.
Go for it.
Accept, I'm sorry, he wanted to speak.
No, go for it.
Go ahead.
I'll fight you over it. You go for it.
Move approval.
I have a motion to approve the repealing of that policy. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Councilmember Anderson, seconded by Councilmember Torgerson. Please vote.
I have a yes vote from Councilmember Kaprowski.
Thank you, Chevelle. That motion passes with a 7-0 vote. Moving on to 45B, approval of council policy number 2023-02, adopting an ethics handbook for elected officials and members of boards, commissions, committees, and task forces with an effective date of August 21st, 2023. Councilmember Kaprowski, would you like to make a comment about this?
Yes, I would. For item number 45, in section 2 of the ethics handbook, it states that complaints must be filed with the town clerk within 30 calendar days of the alleged misconduct. And I had a concern that if a complainant wanted to, or needed to make a public records request to get more information about the alleged misconduct, that they might need more time. So I'd like to add, after the section that says complaints must be filed with the town clerk within 30 calendar days of the alleged misconduct, to add, notwithstanding the foregoing, if within 2 weeks of the date of the alleged misconduct, a complainant makes a public records request to the town clerk about the subject matter of the misconduct, then the complainant shall have 1 calendar week after fulfillment of the public records request to file a complaint. And I will send this all to Chevelle, but it essentially allows time if public records information and that request is needed. It kind of gives more of a buffer there.
Thank you, Councilmember Kaprowski. Does everyone understand that amendment to this item? The concern was that if you wanted to file an ethics complaint and it had a 30-day timeline, that you might not be able to get your FOIA request back in time to actually do that. And so this would be able to answer that. Vice Mayor?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm not opposing it, but I'm looking over at Chris and Chevelle as we went through the intent. The ethics complaint process begins with notifying the clerk that there is a complaint. That sets a time clock to set a meeting between the complainant and the person that they believe violated the ethics code. I don't know if that would be the time, that the time could be extended once a complaint was received until the FOIA request was completed. I'm trying to figure, because even the timeline that Councilmember Kaprowski outlined, depending on the depth and the scope of that FOIA request, they may not still be able to, get that information in time. So it's hard. It's always hard to do these things on the dais, but I'm wondering if that's not more inserted after the complaint has been filed, that timeline could be expanded if a FOIA request is needed to complete that process before they sit down together.
So I
Does
guess,
that make sense?
Yes, playing devil's advocate. I've already submitted a FOIA request and it's day 29 and I haven't received my FOIA request back, so I'm not really sure if there's an ethics complaint, so I'm going to file the ethics complaint anyway.
Well, that's true.
And then anybody could be filing the ethics complaints and then waiting for their FOIA requests to be submitted. Just playing devil's advocate.
I appreciate that. I believe the intention is to review this again every year, or to see if maybe that's what we want to do. Go ahead and include that, but then see how it's working, do a check-in in a year, and see if we need to adjust that to see if we met the needs. Maybe that's a better way to do it. So, okay, I'm okay. In addition to that, I don't think she did a formal motion, but I wanted to put another item on the table. Chris, did you need to stop me here?
Oh, no, go ahead. If you
Okay.
want to explain that, I was
Okay.
going to talk about that, but if you want to, feel free.
Okay. Oh. Go ahead. Do you want me to?
Yeah, feel free. Yeah, thank you.
Part of the ethics handbook has a portion that deals with mediation and who we use for mediation. And as since we met in study session, we learned that the Arizona State University College of Law is made up a lot, the people who would be helping us are retired, and they may not be in session or around in the summertime. So if something happened during those summer months, we needed to be able to contact someone else to assist us. And so based on that, in addition to Councilmember Kaprowski's addition, I'd like to add in parentheses, or similar neutral bodies such as the American Arbitration Association after the section that says Arizona State University College of Law. So all we're doing is showing that we can reach out to a similar type of organization should the Arizona State University College of Law is not available. So that way we wouldn't postpone any of the proceedings. Did I do okay, Chris?
Councilmember Anderson, do you have a comment?
Just a very brief comment about Councilmember Kaprowski's proposal. I think I'm in the same place as the Vice Mayor, is that we could try it. If you remember when our discussions went on about the 30-day period, we did that on purpose with the intent to make sure this process moved along and that it wasn't just put off for some reason that is made up by the complainant for some reason, and just drag it on for a long period of time. So I think it's good to monitor it and see how it works with the language that she's got in there, and we'll come back and visit it if we need to.
And essentially, it will still be 30 days unless somebody has filed a FOIA request, so, yes. Would anybody like to make a motion with those amendments?
I will attempt. Recommend approval of Council Policy Number 2023-02, the Ethics Handbook, with the addition of Councilmember Kaprowski's language. I didn't write it all down, so I know that you'll have that in writing. And the addition of the item that I mentioned. I'll read it again if you need it, but if not, that will be the motion. Thank you.
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor Tilkey, seconded by Councilmember Bongiovanni. Please vote.
We have a yes vote from Councilmember Kaprowski.
Thank you, Chevelle. That motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item C, approval of council policy number 2023-03, adopting a code of conduct for elected officials and members of boards, commissions, committees, and task forces with an effective date of August 21st, 2023. Any discussion? Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion? Oh, did you have discussion?
No, I'll make a motion.
Make a motion.
I'll move approval of council policy number 2023-0, what was that?
3.
6?
3. Oh, 3. I have a motion by Councilmember Anderson, seconded by Councilmember Buckley. Please vote.
We have a yes vote from Councilmember Kaprowski for item 45C.
Thank you, Chevelle. Motion passes 7-0.
Mayor?
Yes.
Could I remind us, and maybe it's more for staff, that during this period till August, this does affect the other boards and commissions, and we need to get this out to them so they are aware of it.
Yep. Yes, as discussed during the study session, if we could send this out to our board and commission members so that they're aware that this change will be going into effect. Thank you. Hence why we made it 60 days from now, to give everybody time. Moving on to communications, report from the town manager on current events.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. A couple things tonight. First, I want to thank Kyle, Eva, and Veronica from our planning department, and Dan and Jennifer from economic development departments, as well as all the staff who worked very, very hard over a very prolonged period of time on the ranch project. I know that was a very challenging development for the neighborhood, for the developer, for this community, and I really appreciate their efforts throughout that entire time. Also wanted to wish Eva a happy birthday. Her birthday is today. I'm sure there were better ways that she would like to spend it, but happy birthday, Eva. We appreciate you. Next, the town's Integrated Water Resources Master Plan won the 2023 American Water Resources Association Integrated Water Resources Management Award, and our Zone 1 Water Transmission Main Assessment Project along the Powerline Trail received the Arizona chapter of the American Public Works Association 2023 Project of the Year in the Environment Less Than $5 Million category. So congratulations to our teams who worked very hard on those. And then lastly, I want to announce the retirement of a longtime Gilbert employee. Recreation Facility Superintendent Howard Davis is retiring after 27 years with the town. Howard was an instrumental part of the growth of the Facilities Division in Gilbert and helped construct and maintain over 1 million square feet of facilities. Howard also served as an aquatics tech in the department and served in lead roles in the growth of the aquatics and parks facilities. Very thankful for Howard's service to Gilbert and wish him the best of luck in his retirement. That's all I have tonight.
When is Howard's official retirement date? Does anybody know? Because he's been telling me for like 3 years that he was getting ready to retire, and I hadn't heard.
I don't recall the exact date. I think it's pretty soon. And he
Okay.
also does not want any parties or recognition.
He doesn't want any
does
public,
not.
I knew that Howard would not want any public recognition, knowing Howard
wants to
like
get
I do.
right to retirement.
But I will message him tomorrow. Thank you for that. Report from council on current events. No one has any. Report from the mayor on current events. I would like to say a big congratulations to our friends at the Gila River Indian Community. They opened their casino down at Gilbert and Hunt Highway this weekend. We were invited out Friday night for an event and then Saturday morning for their ribbon cutting when they officially opened to the public. It is a beautiful facility. If you haven't been down there yet, it's really very nice, and I highly recommend you stopping by, and they should be very proud of that. I don't have anything else. It is officially going to be summer break when we are done with our executive session meeting this evening. We will have the month of July off from our regular council meetings. We have the Heat Relief Network up on the screen. Extreme heat in Arizona can be deadly, and we're looking to you, the public, to donate items such as bottled water, hats, light-colored t-shirts, and sunblock. And there's a bunch of donation sites. There's a QR code if you'd like to scan that, or visit any of the locations listed on our screen, which is our Gilbert Community Center, Heritage Resource Center, all our fire stations, Cactus Yards, Freestone Rec. You get the idea there. And Southeast Regional Library, which I know a lot of people will be at since it is summer break for your kids and you'll be going to the library. Otherwise, I don't have anything else. I hope everyone has a lovely month of July, and we will see you back here for our August meeting. Meeting adjourned.